me just ask a question. How many of you have gone into education because you think you can make a difference? Raise the hands. Come on, put them up. We all can make a difference. Our speaker today is one man who has made a difference. We will watch a DVD in a minute about his story. And so without further ado, please welcome Principal L. Do you want me to start?
Every child needs someone to be crazy about them. This is the mantra of Salome Thomas L., award-winning teacher and principal and nationally recognized educator. It shapes his lifelong commitment to answering the question, how do we ensure that every child achieves their greatest potential? This question lies at the heart of the national dialogue on education policy, the day in and day out work of school personnel, and the hopes of every parent. Central to this challenge is how we succeed with children who are facing the most serious barriers to success: poverty, violence, neglect, and low expectations. For over 20 years, Principal L has taken on this challenge with the absolute belief that every child can and will learn as long as adults in their world care enough not to give up. Starting as a teacher and chess coach at Vaux Middle School, and through his years as principal at several traditional public and charter schools, Thomas L. has transformed the attitudes and strategies of school staff, parents, and members of the community to help hundreds of troubled children not only graduate from high school, but to go on to earn higher degrees from major colleges and universities. He brings to the process a powerful combination of passion, caring, and leadership to craft a refreshing, common-sense roadmap to help kids achieve their dreams, no matter the odds.
The first thing I want to do is make a connection. You've had teachers, you've had some run-ins with you, had fights in the lunchroom. So how are things at home with you and your parents?
Got married to their college suite.
The second thing I want to do is to get to know these children, to find out what's really going on in their lives. Maybe take them on the basketball court, play a little basketball.
Get that stuff out of here!
The third thing I want to do is become a part of their world. It's about going to where that child is and taking that child to where you want them to go.
Salome Thomas L. is married and lives in Delaware County with his 2 young children. He is a national education consultant and longtime teacher and principal in Philadelphia. He received national acclaim as a teacher and chess coach at Vaux Middle School, where his students have gone on to win world recognition as 8-time national chess champions. Thomas L. speaks to groups across the country and frequently appears on C-SPAN, CNN, and NPR radio. Principal L. is a regular contributor on The Dr. Oz Show and the author of the best-selling book, I Choose to Stay, which was optioned by the Walt Disney Company. His newest book, The Immortality of Influence, stresses the importance of leadership, mentoring, parenting, and service to others. He has received the Marcus A. Foster Award as the Outstanding School District Administrator in Philadelphia and the University of Pennsylvania's Distinguished Martin Luther King Award. Principal L. was honored as a Reader's Digest magazine Inspiring American Icon and Philadelphia Magazine's Best Philadelphian. Principal L. is on a mission to motivate educators and parents to realize the tremendous influence they have over our children to help them reach their fullest potential.
My motto, we must believe in them until they begin to believe in themselves. You will not fail. You will pass because I will help you pass. Now, I may be hard on you now, but it's because I want it to be easy on you later in life. There's no class that won't pass.
Good morning. Uh-oh. Just like my students. I'm going to try it one more time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Much better, much better. See, now I know who they learn from. They never want to greet me with enthusiasm, with excitement. I guess as everyone learns early that you want to avoid the principal at all costs. So even when I say come to my office, I have some money I want to give you. Nah, sorry, keep it, Mr. L. You know. But it is such an honor to be here. It's a return visit to Utah for me, and I just met some wonderful, wonderful people my first time, and then actually learning today that they never forgot about me. I have people who are coming up to me today and sort of quoting things that I said before, so I'm sorry that they'll have to hear the same thing all over again, because I don't have any new material, because when you're working with children, it's sort of the same thing every day for years and years, and then one day they just get it. They just get it, and then we just have to keep giving it to them and keep feeding them. But it's an honor to be on your campus. I was just telling your the staff in your education department. I have someone who's following me on Twitter, who said, I'm a BYU grad, and she lives in San Diego now. And she said, make sure you see that library before you leave campus. I said, I think I'm actually speaking, in the library. But it's a beautiful place, and the work that you guys are doing in terms of trying to transform how we go about educating children, but also educating adults who are going to be helping children is groundbreaking. And my story is a real basic one. It's one of a young man who was raised by a single mom, and my mother struggled, and she simply asked my teacher for help. She walked in, and and most times teachers don't expect parents to sort of come in and ask for help. I have these parents who come in and sort of threaten me for giving their kids detentions, And so when one comes in and asks for help, I'm excited. They often come in and tell me they don't like my program, and I have to nicely tell them if their program was working, I wouldn't have to use mine. Because there's some kids that are in my office more than my furniture, And then there's some I never see all year, except when they want to pick up their honor roll certificates. But my mother walked in to my third grade teacher was a young white female who was not from our community. I grew up in a very, very tough section of Philadelphia, Diamond Street Projects, right near Temple University. And she said, I need help. My older children are not going to college or graduating, and one of my children must graduate from college. And my teacher had every reason to say, I have 25, 30 other students to focus on. I can't just help your son, but she didn't do that. Excellent teachers move ordinary children to do extraordinary things. And she helped me, and she worked with my fourth grade teacher, who was an older African-American female who had been at the school 30 or 40 years. We thought she came with the building. And she had quite a few after-school programs. Not one had a title. Everyone was titled "Get in here," and so we were there every day, and they helped to get me into a middle magnet school for gifted kids, and they knew that I would struggle because I had come from a tough family and a tough school, but they supported me through. I went on to high school and discovered that I could play basketball, and became very good. In my own mind, I thought I was good, and decided that maybe I could skip college and go right to the NBA. And my teachers and teachers and counselors sort of, gathered together and surrounded me and said, we heard you talking about skipping college. And I said, well, I'm thinking about it. Do you know a number to a good agent? And they said, no, but we've seen you play basketball. And you can't jump over a banana. So you will not be going to the NBA. They said, but you're smart enough to get an MBA. And this is one of the most important things that you students out there right now who are thinking about this whole mission and journey of becoming a teacher. This is something that you will struggle with for a good part of your career, and that will be being honest and open with your students, being transparent with them, pointing them in the right direction. They will respect you so much more. Now, they may not like you at the time, but they will come back, and they will come back to find you. They will come back to find the person who said, you don't wear your hat when you come into my classroom. When you come into my room, I need you to have respect for yourself and for others. I need you to put on something decent. Pull your pants up. Cover up your body. Don't use profanity, in my presence. And even to African-American students who may use the N-word to one another, have the courage to say it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. It's not acceptable. They will respect you so much more because these children want structure. They want parameters. They want discipline. Discipline is a form of love. And early on in my life, I experienced that from these teachers. Now, I was not very happy with them. I thought they were all jealous of the fact that I thought I was going to be, you know, sort of like the old version of LeBron James. But they knew better, and I'm glad I listened. But I went on to college, and I graduated a small state school for teachers, but I was a communications major. And I graduated, and I didn't have a job. And I contacted my high school teacher you saw me in Reader's Digest with. I called her, and I said, listen, I don't have a job, car, or APT. And I graduated from college, and my friends in the neighborhood are all waiting for me to come home without a job. They told me I was wasting my time going to school. They said, you'd be better off in the state pen instead of Penn State. You know, why think about Yale, go to jail? All of these messages, many times in poor communities, students receive, not only in the community, but many times in their own families. So you become the one person who is sending those positive messages, those positive vibes to those young people, who is saying to them, you know, you can be me because I was once you. But it is a struggle. There's this fear of alienation that many times that students face, and not just in the inner city. We were talking earlier about it, and I live in an affluent community right outside the city, and we've had 3 children in our own neighborhood commit suicide over the past 6 months. You know, one was an honor student in college. You know, students are struggling with drug issues. So I don't want you to assume that only students in the inner city have problems or issues. Now, they may be different issues, but students are struggling in the suburbs, students are struggling in rural areas, students are struggling all over this nation. And they need good, loving, dedicated, and caring adults who are willing to come and love them without exception. Many of them, it is what is missing. You know, for so many students, they want your presence in CE more so than your presence in TS. They want you to be there for them. They want someone who's willing to say, I'm still here. After all of the issues and all, you know, now there's some students that may say some things to you where right now you say, if he says it once, I'm going to leave. But you find yourself coming back day after day after day because you have this sense inside of you that this is a calling, that this is a ministry, helping these young people that so many people have given up on. And I am just so thankful and so blessed. I thank God every day that those ladies did not give up on me. Because in my life, most of the women who supported me were those who I met, you know, through school, who helped me. There were some men there, you know, coaches and some mentors, but the majority of the people who pulled me through, you know, were women. And many of you will have probably already read that or will read that, you know, this country, we built a nation on the backs of women. And we cannot continue to do that. We need those men to step up. We need them to come into schools, come into the communities, and to dedicate themselves to helping to change things. It's the only way we're going to win this battle. But for our young people who simply struggle with coming to school, getting something decent to eat, or having the courage to say to their friends, you know, I am a good student. Because there's so many young people who are successful in school, but there's students who make them feel so terrible because they want to do well, because they want to follow, you know, your leadership. So often they don't advertise that they're good students. There are many of them who don't want to be seen carrying books home. So they'll have 2 sets of books. They have books that they keep in their locker, and they have books that they keep at home. So their friends in the neighborhood assume that, oh, he doesn't carry books. He's just like me. He's not a good student. But this kid's an A-B student because he's finding a way to sort of navigate that road to continue his relationship with his peers, but also honoring the relationship with the adults and the educators, you know, in his or her life. And you know, I after graduating college, my teacher said, "Listen, I can help you." She said, "I can help you. I have a brother who's an executive producer for a sports channel. I can get you a job." I was, you know, communications major. She said, "But it won't be full time, but it'll be a job." I said, "Yeah, but these guys are going to laugh at me if I tell them I graduated college and do not have a full-time job." So when I went back to the community, to the neighborhood, I told those guys that I had a full-time job on Nightline. You know, most of them didn't know who Ted Koppel was. It takes them 2 hours to watch 60 Minutes. So I know they wouldn't know anything about Nightline, but there was this pull, this need to impress them when most of them weren't even high school graduates. But there's always this need. And so, I dedicated myself to this job, and, I said it's part-time, but I'm going to turn it into a full-time job. And I started working for what we called the NBA Beat, the NBA television, and we would produce a 5-minute feature every week on an NBA player. We spend the day with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Julius Erving, spend a day with Charles Barkley, which was very interesting. And we would, we sort of talk to these guys about their lives and what was important. And most of them would talk about, these millionaires would talk about their coaches, their teachers, people in the community who were there for them. But the young people in school never get that message. They only hear about the money, the cars, the jewelry, the women. They don't know that Michael Jordan left college early and went back to finish. They don't know that Vince Carter left college early and went back to finish and wanted to attend his commencement, but his teammates on the Toronto Raptors were calling him a mama's boy for wanting to go to his own graduation because he had promised his mom that he would do that. Now, their ulterior motive was there was a playoff game scheduled on the same day. See, only 25% of NBA players graduate from college. So they're not experts on anything, really. But Vince's mother is. And she told Vince, I helped you graduate from college. So if you know what I know, you will attend this graduation. Now Vince had, what I call the old school mom. See, the president had his leave no child behind. But see, many of us old folks, we had parents who believed in leave no child with or behind. And it worked many times. And so his mother made sure that Vince Carter was on the campus of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, to graduate, because she knew it was important for that message to get out to millions of young people to know that you can be an athlete and still be educated. You can be an athlete and still be someone who cares about being a role model. And it was important. It was important. But those teachers then invited me to come and speak to some high school students about my job in television. And see, one thing about teachers, they always have this underlying motive and issue going on, So I knew that there was some master plan. And I knew that they said if he comes in, he's going to fall in love with these kids. But I was hooked on my TV. I said, I'm going straight to ESPN Sports Center. I don't have time for children. And so I walked into the school. It was a career day, and I talked about my job in TV. And the kids didn't even ask me my name. They wanted to know how many cars did Michael Jordan have, how much money did Larry Bird have. But there were several students who came to me after the program, and they said, if you can come in and motivate us, how come you aren't a teacher? And it was the first time in my life that someone had asked me a question. I had no response. Not my professors, my mother, coaches, no one, some young people. And I thought to myself that I had simply become the same person that I complained about. Someone the community nurtured, supported, and I made it out, and I came back to give nothing. And so I walked into my TV job and I quit. And I enrolled in graduate school, and I got a master's degree and a certificate to teach, and I went right back to the same high school to start teaching. And those students were a little older, and they all ran up to me and they hugged me, and I thought they were going to say, welcome back, Mr. L. They said, Mr. L, you were a fool to leave that TV job. We were not serious. But I had to explain to those students that once we meet you, once we see that look in your eyes and we begin to see that we're making a difference, it's very hard to walk away, from those children. I also had to explain to them about student loans too, So I was not going anywhere anytime soon. But I then spent my next 10 years working in the feeder middle school for our high school, because I saw so many students in the high school who struggled. And many of them struggled simply because they had rough experiences in elementary and middle school. So I wanted to be someone who could make a difference at the K-8 level. And so I spent 10 years at Vaux Middle School. And as soon as I arrived in the school, I could see that these were students who did not understand the importance of critical thinking, problem solving. I said, I've got to find a way to teach these students that they can choose the behavior, but they cannot choose the consequences. And so I started teaching special education students how to play chess. I started teaching them actually mathematics on the chessboard, because I thought it was an engaging way to get students involved in mathematics. This was the engagement before information. So I started teaching them knights move on right angles, bishops move on diagonals. The chessboard is a large square that contains 64 smaller squares. I thought that I was simply teaching these students mathematics and chess, but what I was giving them was intellectual capital, because these were learning disabled students who were now walking around the school carrying chessboards. And if you don't assume anything else about a child who's carrying a chessboard, you assume that they are intelligent. Seriously. So then you would now have students who would come up to these special education students and say, aren't you in that program where you need extra help? They say, yeah, I am, but let's play some chess and see if you should be my roommate, you know? But it was so powerful because what I learned early on as a young teacher was that smart is not something you are, it's something you can become. Early in life, I learned that these students could change their lives around simply because one person decided that they were going to choose a different way to teach. Or one person, one teacher, one of you will go in and say, if they don't learn it, then I didn't teach it. That their success will simply be built upon my own success. That I have to make sure that if they win, I only win. And I believe that, and I believed it too much because the students started beating me in chess. So they were embarrassing me, and then they started embarrassing my colleagues in the school by beating them, and then they encouraged me to take these students out to play against other schools. And these students just had a gift. And of course, by now, everybody was playing chess. Everybody wanted, kids are, you got to sort of sell. If you tell them you want them to do it, they won't do it. But if you sort of make it like you're not allowed, it's exclusive, how come I beat my dad at home and I know I can beat you? And so the desire was there. It's those of you that may go into sales, it's a good sales trick. You want to sort of create the need for it. But these students went on and started beating elementary and middle schools, and then they beat Central High School, one of our top magnet high schools. And I was like, wow, they might really be serious. So I decided to take these students to a big chess match in February 1997. It was the U.S. Amateur Championship, largest team versus team event in the world, larger than the Olympics. Over 220 teams, no age limit. Bless you. And these students, I care about everybody. So I tell my students that I loved you before I even met you, And for many of them, it's powerful because so many have never even heard that word before. So many of them, their first names begin with profanity or they begin with negative words. So, if you want to win that battle with any child, that you let them know, regardless of what happens, that I'm going to love you, that I am going to love you. And the great thing about this profession is that you get every day to start over again. You get every year to start a new year all over. So there are always new beginnings, new days, new dreams, new ways. And I've used every one. But for me, it was exciting for me to be able to take these students to this tournament because number one, it gave them a chance to travel. And there's a large achievement gap, but there's also a major exposure gap. Most students in poor areas, by the time they're 18, 3/4 of the trips that they will take will be within 3 miles of their home unless they're going to school. So there's so many students who are never exposed to other diverse cultures, other areas, so we could truly make a difference with our young people. And I said, this is how I'm going to introduce these students to the world. We're going to travel through playing chess. And so we went to North Jersey near New York to play in this tournament. And I knew that my students would be humble because there were no age limit. In their first match, they were matched up against Bucknell University's chess team. And one of their players was a graduate student who had come back to play with his friends. So I told my students, be prepared. I want you to learn from losing and be happy. And they were very happy, and I was proud of them because that's what you want. You want your students to understand that failure can be motivating. Success is paralyzing. The problem for me is the student said, Mr. L, we beat that team. So I went to find a graduate student, and I said, what happened? He said, I just have a couple questions. Are those midget adults or really elementary and middle school kids? Because we've never played against kids who play at that level. He said, who is the chess master that works with them? I said, we're a poor district. We can't afford a chess master. These students are surrounded by teachers who teach them that they can do anything they want as long as they work hard and as long as they work hard and believe in themselves, but also believe in the adults who are helping them. And the students just amazed me. They astounded everyone. And so the next day, one of our students, Demetrius Carroll, who had been evicted from his home, so he was looking forward to getting away and being able to sleep in his own bed, was matched up against an expert level player. It was a player 20 years older than him who had been playing probably close to 20 years. And Demetrius looked like he was not going to be able to win this match. but I was proud of him for trying, just for coming, because his landlord wouldn't even allow us to get his clothing out of the house. So the teachers and folks in the church and the community purchased what he needed for the trip. And of course he wanted Air Jordan and Sean John, but we were able to get him some Air Gordons. So he had to be happy. But I was just proud that he still made the trip and he worked hard. And I knew that this guy was much better than him. But the tournament director, who I complained to because I was upset that they matched this young inner city teen up against this expert level, adult player, but he explained to me, you know the rules, we use a Swiss system, we match the best players against the worst. He said, but you need to take another look at that board. And it looked like Demetrius was still losing, but remember what I taught those special education students. That chessboard is a square. It's the same on all four sides. It's the first time in 35 years of U.S. chess history that a novice or beginner player had ever defeated an expert level player. Never done before. And after the match, because his name's Demetrius, we called him Meat. I said, Meat, how did you do that? He said, Mr. L, I don't know. He said, I sat there. He said, because the guy came, he sat down like 2 bottles of beer trying to intimidate me. He had all his friends watching. So he says, I knew I was done. He said, but I thought about all those people who helped me get here. He said, it was like I wasn't even moving to pieces, Mr. L. It was like I was just, everything he came with, I had an answer for it. I had an answer, and it just frustrated him. And the tournament director said that his moves were superior not only to my thinking, his coach, but also to the chess masters who analyzed the match. And he said, I want to treat your students to dinner in the hotel restaurant. And I had 15 kids there from the inner city. And I said, sir, that's a nice gesture, but you don't want to let my kids in your restaurant. You give me a few dollars, I will take them to McDonald's and they will be very happy. He said, no. We're going to write an article in Chess Life magazine. We're going to post a name and lights. This has never been done before. I gathered the students up, and this tournament was at the Parsippany Hilton Hotel, nice hotel. And the menu was outside the restaurant, so you could read it and decide if you want to come in. And so I had the students promise me, if we go in, if you can't pronounce it, do not order it. And they gave me their word. They proceeded to go in and order filet mignon, crab biscuit. But that was their experience. I mean, there's some children that eat like that on a regular basis. But the powerful thing for me as a teacher is that most of those students who were there in New Jersey in February 1997, when they were seniors in high school, were offered full-year scholarships. That young man, Demetrius Carroll, who was evicted from his home, was offered a full scholarship to every state university in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure that those people who helped him get to that tournament, I know that they were just trying to help him just get to one chess match. I don't think they truly knew that they were giving him a chance at life, that they were teaching this young man an important lesson about service, that you make sure that when people help you, that you try your hardest. And so he's dedicated his life to giving back. And so many of those young people, because before the tournament ended, those students defeated a team of 4 men whose combined age was over 200 years. That had never been done before. I mean, so my whole theory of failure and everything else, it was humble pie was out the window. I mean, they were just arrogant, self-centered, silly, trites, just everything. But the one thing I asked them to do is to promise me if there was no furniture in the van when we arrived, that it would not be in the van on the way home, because this was a nice hotel. And they did commit to that. But those students in February 1997, just taught me how important it is to believe in students and how they will rise beyond your level of expectation if you have a high level of expectation for students, regardless of where they're from. And those students went on in April of 1997 to Knoxville, Tennessee to win the National Chess Championship. And it was just a phenomenal ride, for those students to be able to see what it was like, not only to travel, but also to see what winning was like. Because there's so many children who spend their entire lives believing that they will only be able to lose. And my single principle was that they would know nothing other than that they could win. Even when they didn't win, they would know that they had to feel good about the fact that they were on a journey, to win. And so, we started getting all this attention, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger came to visit our school. And he wanted to set up this after-school program, and then he started talking about how he was such a great chess player growing up in Europe. And I said, Arnold, you came to the wrong school talking about chess. Now, you want to talk about terminating people and blowing up things? That's fine. but do not talk about chess around these kids. He said, no, I want to play one. No, you don't. And then he made a big mistake. He talked about how chess keeps everybody alert on the set, on the movie set, and he makes everybody play early in the morning. But then he was not very smart because he challenged one of my girls. And I said, Arnold, don't fool with the girls. Play my boys, and they'll let you win. They won't focus. They won't concentrate. These girls treat the pieces like offspring. They will play, they play hours and never trade a piece. They frustrate my boys. But no, he wanted to play little Denise Pickard. Pink glasses, honor roll student. Denise, students teased her because she wore a uniform every day, and her mother was confined to a wheelchair, so she was being raised by an her grandmother and grandfather. And they had her in church every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, so she was powerful. But Denise was also one of the top 50 female chess players in the nation in her age division. I said, Arnold, don't do it. And Denise said, you know, Mr. L, I was nervous. He's rich, he's famous, he's married to a woman who has more money than him, so I know he's upset. I wonder where she learned that. She said, but I had to checkmate him. Arnold said, you terminated the Terminator. But then he wrote a check for our school for $20,000, and we used that money to purchase blazers for our students, luggage. We had students who would travel on 6- and 7-day trips with plastic bags, for luggage. So we had staff members who would donate luggage and people in the community. So we were able to purchase what our students needed. And this was someone not from our community, but who said this is something worth investing in. It was another important lesson, for those children. When you are blessed, then you are to share those blessings with other people. That's probably a lesson I teach every day. Now, I get accused in school of being a preacher and a teacher, but these students will keep you on your toes and your knees every day. So I have to. That's why that prayer this morning was so powerful for me. I could have just listened to the prayer and gone home, because it's so important to be in touch with your mission and who you are and who you draw strength from, because there are days when it will be tested. But there are days when students will find you, and you will realize that you were called to do this, and there was a reason why you chose to stay. My first year as principal, my mother laid me out when she found out I wanted to be a principal. And I couldn't understand why, because she had always supported my wanting to become a teacher. And I said, why, Mom? She said, well, being a principal is a little different. You're going to be supervising adults, and they don't always get along. She said, now you expect children not to get along at times, but she said, you are going to supervise some adults who are going to challenge your skills. And I said, well, that's what I want to do, because then I'll be able to affect, more children. She said, well, then what you must understand is if you're going to be a good principal, not just a principal, but a good principal, you must go into that school and know that there will be people in that building who are smarter than you. That there will be people in that building. Those old ladies were there long before you arrived. They were there for principal after principal after principal. That they taught the children of children that they taught. And she said, you go in there and you bow down to them. You be humble, and you make sure that you are not arrogant. She said, arrogance is the Achilles heel of the school leader. And my mother taught me a lot. Rest in peace. Before she left me, she made sure that I had everything I needed to survive. But when I walked into that school, I made a big mistake. I told those ladies that my mother called them old ladies at my first meeting, and that didn't go over well. So I spent the first year buying color copiers, anything I could think of, dry erase markers, a lifetime supply, anything to make up for what I had done. But I also realized that there's no way that I'm going to make it without those people. And I realized early that as an administrator, it was my duty to serve them. It was not their duty to serve me. That leadership is about service. If you don't serve, you can't lead. And that was a great education for me early, from my mother, but also from those elderly ladies who were working in the school. But my first year as principal was a rough one, because I began to realize that I had struggles with parents. I had so many stakeholders. I had struggles trying to convince the central office that we needed to make sure that we were funding programs for our students. I had struggles with teachers who were really overworked, and I couldn't blame them. They were overworked and underpaid, and I needed to ask them for more work without any pay.
I had students, many of them who were coming from struggling homes, that I needed to be more committed to school. And at the end of my first year, I really thought that maybe I've made a mistake, that maybe I've taken on a job that I'm just not equipped for, that I'm just too attached to emotionally. And then in June, I got a phone call from a young man named Otis Bullock. And he was one of my first chess players, one of my early students. And he was a student that we helped to get into one of our top science magnet schools, the Carver High School in Philadelphia, and he struggled. So he ended up having to go to his neighborhood school, but he graduated and we hadn't heard from him. And he called me and he said, "Mr. L, I know you haven't heard from me, but I just want you to know that today's Friday, and on Sunday I'll be graduating from college." And I said, "Otis, what college?" He said, "Westchester State." I said, "Westchester State Prison?" He said, "No, Westchester State University, Mr. L, I am graduating." I said, "Otis, please be serious. I've been to too many funerals. I need to go to more graduations. You know, we lost so many students to murder when I spent those 10 years in that middle school. It was such a struggle just to make it from day to day. But to have a kid call, number one, to have a kid remember to call you and just to let you know that they were graduating. You know, when he said, "I don't expect you to come, it's short notice. But I just did not want to walk down that aisle without calling and say thank you. But I need you to call all of my former teachers, some of them, and let them know that one of their kids made it." And I called those teachers, but I called my wife too, because I've spent my entire career making decisions to go places with kids without talking to my wife first. So I've learned to become a good husband, and I called my wife. And I called my wife and I said, "You remember Otis?" And she said, "Yeah, I remember Otis." I said, "Otis is graduating." My wife was pregnant with our first daughter, and she struggled with the first pregnancy. But she said, "We're going." And we made the hour drive in the heat. It's 100-degree temperature. And we cried through the entire ceremony. We were just so proud to see Otis, you know, made it. And after the program, we took pictures of Otis with his professors. We took pictures of him with his friends. We took pictures of Otis with people he didn't even know. We were just happy to see that one of our kids made it. And Otis shared with us later that most of his family didn't attend his graduation. But when he looked in the audience and saw all his former teachers there, because I begged them to show up, come and be here. Let this young man know, let the message go back into the community that when you make it, we will be there for you. Because we're there. When you become T.O., when you become Mark McGuire, when you become Tiger Woods, we're there. We show up in droves. But we never show when they make the honor roll. We never show when they graduate with honors. So how can we expect them to aspire to be anyone else other than if we don't dangle the academic carrot? And they were there. And Otis shared with me that he was so proud to see those people in the audience. And that was May of 2000. That was June of 2000. In May of 2004, Otis Bullock graduated from Temple Law School. That's probably the greatest moment in my life as a mentor, as a teacher, as a father, just as a man, to see a young man show the diligence, because this was a young man who struggled in high school, but he overcame those obstacles. And I made sure that everybody was there at his graduation. I went down on the floor, and you know, when you get a JD, they give you a large diploma. And I said, "Otis, you take this diploma back to your neighborhood, and you show it to your friends who teased you about wearing the same uniform every day. And you show them what happens when you listen and you're dedicated to your teachers. But you also let them know that their parents, their fathers teased me when I came home from college and didn't have a job, because I became teacher and principal in the same neighborhood where I grew up. And that was a very tough transition. But I said, Otis, please understand that we have to make sure that we're making a difference. I was so proud of him. And so I came to you today to share with you that there will be times when students who will, when they know you, they will tell you they don't ever want to see you again. But 5, 10, 15 years later, they will walk past 100 people to find you. They will come to find the person who said to that young person that you can be somebody. My motto is that every child deserves at least one person to be crazy about them. Just one person. If we can accomplish that, then we can help change and build this next generation of leaders so that they grow up and become teachers and servant leaders and counselors and nurses. But it begins with us. I am only here today because people like you decided that they were going to make a difference. And we have to understand that there's unity in diversity. So those young people need to be exposed. I had students who came into my school bragging about how
They loved being in a community where there was no diversity. There were only people who looked like them. But I told them that they had to understand that there were people who did not look like them who helped their ancestors. And I was going to teach them that. And so I contacted a principal in Vermont. Now, Vermont is not a very diverse state, but it's also the first state to abolish slavery in their state constitution. And I asked the principal, after my students started writing letters, when would be a nice time for my students to come visit when they could feel the true essence of Vermont? He said February. And so in February of 2003, I took 15 students from the city to Vermont, to Burlington, Vermont, for a week. And those students had the greatest time of their lives. Those students in Vermont showed my students a home where Frederick Douglass lived, showed them where Harriet Tubman was allowed to hide in the homes of whites who were helping slaves get to Canada on the Underground Railroad. They learned so much from people that they had never met. It changed their whole experience and their whole life. And of course they complained about the 12-hour train ride on Amtrak. I had to explain to them that slaves didn't have Amtrak, that they had to walk to Vermont. But it's experiences like that, cultural exchanges, where we can change the lives of all students to understand that we have to come together and become one and become unified in this whole mission to change our nation. My belief, and I often say this to my students, is that teamwork makes the dream work. And so if we come together as a team and decide that we're going to change the way education is delivered, that we're going to change the way students are coming to school and the way they're learning, then we can truly make a difference. But today is not about me, it's about you. Because you chose this field of endeavor. You chose this because you wanted to make a difference. And my hat is off to you for making that decision, because many people walk away from it. Knowing that the greatest need is for people to come and work with our children at any level, at any profession, but just be able to say, I spent some time making a difference in the lives of children. Because one day you may encounter a student just like me. And a student who may say to someone that my biggest inspiration was my former teacher. A person who calls you and says, I'm graduating from college. It's the greatest feeling that you will ever get. But I hope that when they call you, that you're available to attend that graduation. God bless you. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your time with me. I know we only have a short amount of time. I will be in town. We'll be in Salt Lake. So I don't know if any of you have time, but I will be around Salt Lake in the afternoon and in the evening. And so if I don't get a chance to meet you today, I'm always available on the internet. You can email me at my website, principal.l.com. You can follow me on Twitter, and I promise to follow you back if you let me know, and or on Facebook. I'd love to be able to encourage you to continue on this journey and work hard to becoming the best teacher that you can be. Thank you very much.